So we're going to zoom out from Europe to the whole world. But before we do, I want to say this. It's unbelievably magnificent to see the rewilding of Europe, the protection of nature, a conversation about lynx and bears and wolves in Europe. My God, when I lived here 40 years ago, nobody was talking about those animals. When I lived in Switzerland, there was no brown bears in Switzerland. There was nobody talking about it, and now we've had a whole day of inspiration. So thank you to our European friends for inspiring us all. So I have a wonderful panel to chair, and I'm going to launch straight into it. And I'm going to invite you to escape the rational side of your brain for a moment and enter the emotional side of your brain. This is our home. This is the place where we evolved. Whoops. I guess it isn't. Some nice painting of an aurochs. Start over. This is our home. This is the place where we evolved. We are profoundly committed by being biological beings to being in a relationship with this place called Earth. For most of our evolution, for most of our history, we understood that we depended on wild nature to nourish us, to nurture us, that we were part of the natural world. And then, with the Enlightenment, about 500 years ago, we began to believe that we were somehow apart from the world. And we, being a European descendant, even though I'm Canadian, we set out to convert the world, to make it useful to people. This is a wonderful image from an American painting called American Progress, or Progress, in which liberty is setting out from the big cities of the East to settle the Wild West. And you can see her chasing the buffalo, chasing the wolf, and chasing the native people out of the landscape and bringing in civilization, trains, plows, farms, settlers, out with the wild and in with the civilized. And we considered that progress. If you fattened her up a little bit, and you put a crabby expression on Liberty's face, that's Queen Victoria, and you have Canada and Australia and South Africa and all over Eastern Africa. Or if you put a conquistador in that image, you have what came from Spain and went into Latin America. We tried to change the world, and we did. And this is where we ended up. This is from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report. The resilience of ecosystems is going to be exceeded this century due to a combination of factors including climate change, land use disturbance, drought, fire, and other global change drivers. In other words, we have messed up. We do not have a good relationship with the natural world, and it's time we fixed it. It's as simple as that. So here's where we are. We need to do something about being in this state of despair. And that's why we ended the last World Wilderness Congress, WILD10, in Mexico with a vision of hope. The idea that we could shift our relationship with the natural world and say nature needs half. Nature needs at least half in an interconnected way for nature. That's a proper relationship with the natural world. We should protect in an interconnected way at least half the planet. We have a beautiful world to work with. This is a picture I took on a riverbank in the Indian Himalaya of tailor's waste that had been thrown by the stream. And it's a good metaphor for some of the graphics that Steve Carver showed us and the Europeans have been talking about. It's still beautiful. It may be in tatters, but we can reweave it. We can have a beautiful world again if we act consciously. So this idea is called nature needs half, or la moitié pour la nature, or la mitad para la naturaleza. And the idea is to create a global movement. The Wild Foundation has incubated it, but it's intended to belong to everybody. This is the world we want. This is the world we should work for, and we should not apologize for having dreams of hope and integrity. In your clip, this thing that was in your delegates bag, you will find this paper that I wrote that Parks Magazine, the Journal of IUCN's World Commission on Protected Areas, published last Friday, especially for this Congress. and for some other global congresses coming this fall, that gives you the science and the reasons and also the philosophical framework why at least I think this idea of nature needs half is an idea whose time has come. And I'm going to take you to one region of the world, the place I come from. I live in Banff National Park in Canada, where we have a tremendous amount of protected areas. In fact, with this Serengeti Mara system, the most intense system of protected areas in the world is in the Yellowstone to Yukon region. But even there, we haven't accomplished the protection of everything. We haven't protected at least half. We're close. And I want to share with you a place-based example of how we're trying to go about protecting more, making an addition to Waterton Glacier International Peace Park on the Canada-US border. Hemos pedido al fotógrafo español Jaime Rojo de venir a ayudarnos con nuestra campaña para la protección du Flathead Valley en Canadá y los Estados Unidos. Eso es su video. Can we roll the video, please? So that video of the Flathead Valley in British Columbia shows you the idea of connecting and protecting. So the idea of the wildlife corridor is to connect Waterton Glacier to Banff and the expanded protected area of Waterton Glacier. Even in the most protected landscape in the world, we still need to get to half. So we have an ambition for the whole world. There is no place that's already there except particular spots of the world. And we're going to have some fun this afternoon talking about a variety of ideas across planet Earth. I have a very distinguished panel to introduce. I'll begin with introducing Dr. Russ Mittermeier, who's president of Conservation International. He's the chair of the IUCN's Primate Specialist Group. He's been a champion of tropical biodiversity for many decades, as well as large-scale conservation. He pioneered the idea of megadiversity and diverse wilderness areas, and has also been a champion for the idea of hotspots. Dr. Russ Mittermeier.